All right, for today's video, we're going to be continuing our coverage of the Transformers Buzzworthy Bumblebee Creatures Collide 4-pack, and today we're going to be taking a look at Ransack. And yeah, this is probably the figure I was the most excited about when the 4-pack was announced. I think in the end, Golbug might have beaten him out just by a little bit, but still, this is a very nice figure. It is just really long overdue for us starting to get new versions of the Deluxe Insecticons from G1. The only one of them that's really gotten any love throughout the years is Chop Shop has gotten a few different figures, but poor old Ransack here has not gotten much. And you know that they've had the Ransack trademark for like ever, because they used it in Cybertron. It was used a few times in the movie toy line, so we could have gotten one, but we just haven't. He is, of course, a remold of the Legacy Kickback that came out earlier this year. And, you know, it would be nice to get the Deluxe Insecticons as their own original molds, but I get it. With at least 3 of them, their alt modes are very similar to the original G1, you know, Insecticons that actually show up in the show. So it makes sense to do them as remolds of them. In the case of Ransack here, obviously, like I said, he's a remold of Kickback. Maybe that means that when we, I hope, eventually get a new Bombshell, that can be a new Barrage. And when we get a new Shrapnel, that can maybe be a new Chop Shop. And maybe they'll just do Venom as his own mold. I don't know. I'm just dreaming here. I'd really like versions of all of them. But yeah, no, this figure turned out really nicely. It's mostly the same exact mold as Kickback, just comes with a different head sculpt here, which is the head sculpt in both modes. And yeah, I think it looks really nice. It definitely evokes the look of the original Ransack. So he has the big compound eyes on the side of his head there. And what's really neat about this figure is it's clear that they did some thinking ahead about making Kickback into this figure, because the whole kind of gimmick with Legacy, right, was that a lot of the figures came with these like weird clear energy weapons, and the ones that came with Kickback were versions of these that were basically like clear pink, right? And someone figured out that when you look at, you know, the original Ransack, part of his alt mode was this kind of like big distinct section, like, you know, what is that part of the bug called? The abdomen, thorax. I'm bad with bug parts, but he had the big third body section at the end here that was fairly distinctive on the original, you know, locus mode of the original Ransack. And someone figured out that if you take these weapons from that, you know, also came with Kickback, so you can do this on Kickback too if you want, and you plug them together like this. There's a little hole back here on the back of the bug mode, kind of on the back of like what will be the robot mode back, and a little slot right here on the waist that corresponds to obviously the handle of this and this little square tab right here. So you can actually slot this in here and kind of give him that section there that looks more like the original toy. And yeah, you know, it's not perfect because it is still kind of meant to be sword, so it is sort of like weirdly thin. But from the side, I think that works pretty well to especially just differentiating him from Kickback a little bit and making him look like a slightly different creature, even if he's mostly the same. I find it helps if you kind of like angle these up and then bring the legs down a little bit, just so this section sticks up a little bit more prominently. But, you know, you can do whatever you want there, but I think that's a pretty good look, and it's really neat that they were able to incorporate that to kind of, you know, bake in some differentiation into the figure without actually doing any remolding in that section. But yeah, it comes with those. He also comes with the same gun that Kickback came with, just it doesn't have any paint. You can still store it under here if you want. I don't love that storage, but at least it's mostly out of the way. And interestingly, with 3 out of the 4 figures in this set, they actually each come with different head sculpts, which is kind of neat. Golbug is the only one that doesn't, but yeah, I guess they figured that, you know, because the pieces are on the sprues anyway, they might as well just, you know, add in the previous head sculpt. So if you want, you know, a version of Ransack that just has a Kickback head, you can do that. With him, I think it makes considerably less sense than the other 2 figures that come with the other head sculpts, who we'll be taking a look at in the next couple reviews. But, you know, it's a neat option either way. I'm not ever going to put this head sculpt on him because, like, yeah, I could just take this figure that has one bit of remolding and just replace it with the original mold, I guess. It just seems kind of pointless. But, you know, it's never a bad thing to get more parts there. But yeah, no, I think that the bug mode works out pretty well. One thing I will say, if you're not wanting to use this section and you're wanting to store it otherwise, it has the same options that Kickback did. Obviously, this one pegs in very securely. But with this guy, and actually probably by extension with Kickback too, I would be a little bit hesitant about this because these sections, the other way that you can store them is with these little tabs on the side here that can go onto these. It's kind of hard to see because it's clear plastic, but there's 4 corresponding slots here, so you can either put it like that or further up. And if you do this, I would be really careful with it because I pegged it in there a couple times and it looks like it's starting to crack the plastic. You can see that there's a crack there. It seems to be mostly internal, like I can't actually like feel the crack or anything, but I would be a little bit worried about doing that too often. Or if you're going to maybe like shave down these tabs a little bit, because I wouldn't recommend it just because you might snap parts of the wings, and that's not really worth it because I don't think these even look really that good when they're plugged onto the side like that, but figured I'd give that warning. But yeah, in terms of, here, we'll put this back on here. But in terms of size comparisons, we can show him off with a few other figures here. Just for the standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, just so you can see what he looks like against an average car deluxe figure. And then here he is with the original Kingdom, with the original Legacy Kickback. Just so you can see what it looks like with this section and without it. You know, bit of a difference. You know, they still mostly look the same, but the heads are different. It's got that section different. It's a nice bit of differentiation. And then last but not least, just because I have him here, here he is with the Minicon version of Chop Shop. For the only other version of any Deluxe Decepticon or Insecticon that I have. I didn't get the version of him that was a repaint of Shrapnel. So this is the one. This is the Chop Shop in my collection right now. I hope we get a full size version of him that's like a deluxe, because he's definitely a little bit sad as a Minicon here. But the two of them still look good together if that's the only one we ever get. But yeah, in terms of transformation, obviously it's the exact same as Kickback. We can just take this section off for now and take the gun off, and we'll put those off to the side. First thing you want to do is take the little bug feet here in the back, rotate them around and fold them up like that, and then take this whole section and it'll fold into the back of the leg here. You want to flip out the feet here. This is a much looser joint on this one than it was on Kickback. So usually with Kickback, I had to like open up the ankle tilt to like get a finger on it to move it out. But with these, luckily, they seem to just easily kind of just shift right out. So yeah, do that on both sides here and then straighten out the legs. With the arms here, you want to flip in this section just like that. That'll flip out the hand, and then take each of these sections and fold them in to meet each other in the middle. And those will be how his arms work, just like that. Take the wings, fold them to the back, just like that. And then for the head here, there's a little flap that was also present on Kickback where you just want to get a fingernail behind that and just fold that to the back and then rotate around the head sculpt here. And yeah, I guess I didn't show off articulation in bug mode, but you know, it's the same as Kickback. It's mostly the same as in robot mode too, to be honest. But yeah, here we have Ransack in his robot mode. And yeah, I think he looks really nice. Definitely evokes the original Ransack. I mean, there's some parts where he's a little bit different. Like, you know, the original Ransack had that sort of like big thorax, abdomen, proboscis, I don't know, section in the middle that was like a feature of his robot mode, and you can't just like leave this plugged in to emulate that, because it would be make him way taller than it actually, you know, go past his legs there. So you can't really do that, but you know, at least the kind of shape of the section there generally gets that look across. Also, that look was a bit silly, so I think it's fine switching that up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, he's clearly more distinctly Kickbacky with a new head rather than actually looking like, you know, mostly the body proportions of the original Ransack. But, you know, that makes sense. That's okay. In terms of articulation, obviously the exact same as Kickback. His head here is a bit new, so you can see his new head sculpt there, which I think looks really nice. He has the same sort of look as the G1 toy with the weird sort of swept back antenna there. But yeah, the head's on a ball joint, so you get a little bit of wiggle and you can swivel it back and forth. Each of the antenna can also swivel. You know, they're mostly stuck in place, but you know, you can move them. But it's nice that they're at least kind of stiff in that joint so that they mostly stay in place there. The shoulders, just like Kickback, you know, they can rotate around just like that and rotate out to the side. He has a bicep swivel right there. Pretty deep elbow bend, which is nice. The wrists can only kind of go down and kind of expose the little bug foot there. He's got a waist cut. Hips can go forward, back, out to the side, thigh swivel, about 90 degrees of bend at the knee. The toes can kind of tilt up if that's useful to you, and then has that ankle tilt there. And then obviously the wings are just on a, you know, rotation joint right here. So if you have them like this, then, you know, they stick up just, you know, like Kickbacks do. But if you want to bring them down, they do tend to like sit a little bit beneath the underarm there, which can be a little bit awkward. So I personally, I mean, the original Ransack also did have his wings sticking up, but they were more like rotated to the side. So I don't know. What I usually tend to do is to kind of just fold them back so it's just a little bit different from Kickback. But, you know, really either way, to be the most accurate, I guess, to the original toy, you would just leave them up, but that's also how Kickbacks are. So whatever. And then for all of his weapons and stuff, obviously the peg tolerances on these pieces feel even tighter than the original, but obviously you can have him wield his weapons in a variety of different ways here. You can have him hold these as two different swords, or you could plug them into each other so they kind of create one bigger sword, although the one joint is a little bit loose on him, so it sometimes tends to fall down. It helps a little bit if you have him hold it at this handle instead, just so there's a little bit more centered weight there. But I still think that's pretty cool. And then the gun, obviously he can hold just like Kickback. For storage, the gun can just peg into his back, just kind of where it was in alt mode. You can kind of, you can't really peg it in all the way if you do it like that, but it mostly stays. But if you have it sticking straight up, it kind of bumps into his antenna here. I don't know. It's kind of a kickbacky gun, so I'm probably going to leave it off to the side for him personally, but, to each his own. And then these, like I said, I wouldn't recommend storing them on the wings, but you can do that. This is, that you can either have them like this or the other way. Depending on which side of the sword you want to be kind of showing in the front there. I'm not going to do it just because I got kind of worried when that crack showed up. So, but alternate options, he's got ports on his forearms and on his shoulders here. I think the way that I like it best is plugged into his shoulders here. It's a little bit awkward and it definitely changes the look of the robot mode quite a bit. But with a guy that I'm already trying to make look a little bit different from Kickback, I don't mind it as much. Like as him just like having big silly parts on the side there, because it kind of changes the silhouette a little bit in a way that it felt kind of counter to like the classic Kickback silhouette to have those parts on him. But on this guy, any way that it switches it up, I think is fine on my book. So that's where I generally put them. But, you can also just, put them on the arms one way or the other. And I think that looks okay too. I think this is just, the look that I like the best. But yeah, in terms of size comparisons, here he is again with Kingdom Sideswipe, just so you can see what the two of them look like together next to an average size Deluxe. As you can see, he's pretty much on par, average height Deluxe. Looks pretty good there. Here he is again with Legacy Kickback, just so you can see some of the differences here and, how just like doing a few different things with the robot mode really kind of changes the silhouette and identity of this guy. Obviously helps that he's got a new head sculpt, and it would look a lot more similar if he had the Kickback head sculpt on there. I'm not going to bother putting this head sculpt on just because I'm always going to leave that one on, but this is an option. Here he is again with the little Minicon Chop Shop, just so you can see what the two of them look like together. And then last but not least, here he is with Golbug from the same pack. We'll kind of show these guys off together in robot mode as we go. But this pack is turning out pretty well so far. I really like both of these figures. The other two figures in the set were a little bit more unnecessary for me, but I still do like all four of the figures in this set, and I think that it does some fun things. And I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but like this price costs less than the cumulative sum of 4 Deluxes, which you don't really expect them to do that often. Usually when they do multi-packs, it pretty much just is, the sum of the 4 figures added up, but this is like significantly cheaper than what 4 Deluxes actually goes for nowadays. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, these were the 2 figures that I was most excited about, and you know, we can get into my opinions about the other two when we get to them. But for now, that's pretty much it for Legacy Ransack here. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Without further ado, here we have Transformers Buzzworthy Bumblebee Creatures Collide Ransack.